Welcome to Read, Write, Local, Unbound for Tuesday, June the 22nd. This is a presentation of Avon Lake Public Library. My name is Jerry Vogel. I'm the Assistant Director. And I have as my guest, Mr. Mudcat himself, M.T. Bass, the author from Mudcat Falls, who has so many books, I don't even know where to get started. But I'm going to get started by letting him say hey and introducing himself. Go ahead.
Well, hey, it's good to be here with, Avon Lake Public Library, Read, Write, Local, right? That's what this is called. So
yes, it is. Yeah. And it's unbound because you're not together. We're doing this one at a time.
yeah. And plus we're all zoomed in, right? So that's kind of another way of being unbound, at least by Wi-Fi. So
well, anyway, like I said, you've got so many books. Where to start? There's your science fiction trilogy, The Murder by Munchausen.
Wow.
A few other things like My Brother's Keeper, which you have a new edition in that.
Yep, I do. It's called Jungle Land.
Jungle Land, that's the next one. And then I think this has got a few in them too, the 60s series.
Well, no, that's just the one.
The one standalone 60s.
Yeah, a standalone book. So
okay.
It was crazy enough writing that. So.
All right. Now here's another one I just noticed lately, Something for Nothing, that we have. It's about Alaska pipeline days.
Right. Two guys from Ohio State drop out and go to get rich on the pipeline.
The Ohio State.
The Ohio State.
As you make clear here in the introductions. And then I guess we have some sort of techno thriller type things like Article 15.
Yep. He's the lead character is an ex-Navy SEAL, and he's a kind of a fixer for a lawyer out of Chicago.
Okay. So, real badass then, yes.
He can be if he needs to be.
Principles though. He's a fixer with principles, right?
Yep, that's right.
So it's quite a world that you have created just out of your mind, but I know it also comes out of your life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your earlier life and how you kind of got into reading and writing?
Well, it started pretty early in high school. I was in advanced placement English and read a lot of different great stuff, Vonnegut, Joseph Heller, guys like that were all on my list. So, and I got involved in it mostly because the writing end of it, because I was interested in developing lyric writing, because I was mainly focused on being a musician and playing in a rock band, like so, and the whole idea is to like put out your own stuff, and so that was going to be the main focus. But as I went along, after I got out of school, I went to Baldwin Wallace for a year, tried to get in the conservatory, and just didn't have the classical chops to do that. And at that time, when I started looking around, they were cutting back all the other disciplines, history and English and stuff like that. So I transferred to Ohio Wesleyan and went there, and hooked up. When I finally declared an English major and philosophy major, I connected with a Toledo guy named Robert Flanagan. If you've ever heard of him, he wrote The Maggot, and he wrote
Robert Flanagan.
Yeah, he taught down there, and so he was kind of my mentor, going through, because when I went to within the English major, instead of picking a romance or Victorian or modern American, I picked creative writing. So that was my focus, through the course, and I worked quite a bit with him, and he was a great help to me. So, and then then I got out and I pursued the music for a while, and then kind of spun out of that and ended up in Colorado, and I worked as a manufacturer's rep, sales rep for the aerospace and computer industries. But at night I was writing my books. So I started doing that. So I wrote at night. I wrote on airplanes when I was traveling from here to there at 35,000 feet. So anytime I got some spare time, I started scribbling things out.
You were also flying airplanes in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, I got my pilot's license actually at Cleveland Hopkins Airport.
Oh, okay.
They had a flight training a school there. So I got my private pilot's license there. Then when I went to Colorado, I got my advanced ratings. I got an instrument rating. commercial pilot's certificate and a certified flight instructor certificate. So.
Okay, so putting all these different experiences together, if I may back up a little bit, lyrics, you mentioned earlier that you know, obviously you're a guitarist, you like the blues, you like the players and stuff. Did you like, was it a lot of their lyrics you were into as well, or is there other artists that really inspired with their words?
Well, I mean, the guys I like, Steely Dan was one. That's one group with, you know, their lyrics are just, you know,
Very witty.
crazy. Yeah, crazy. So I always, you know, and I always try to sneak some of that into my books. Like in the first Munchausen book, I got critiqued at one of my writers group because I snuck in Agents of the Law, Luckless Pedestrians. I snuck that in there a couple of times, and they just didn't get it. So it's like, oh well, what can you do? So
I hear that.
But yeah, so you know, yeah, Steely Dan was a big influence, and then I like the Doobie Brothers, and you know, some other folks like that.
All the related connections between them, yes.
Oh yeah, Michael McDonald, all over the place.
Skunk Baxter and all that, yes.
Yep. Yeah. You know, he's like a rocket science guy.
Yes, he's like an aerospacer. He designs airplanes and stuff. Or no, he does like extreme war gaming technology and stuff. He's a defense consultant.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, missile defense or something like that. So
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that when I heard that. So
yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Okay, so then what did you really learn? I mean, you did a lot of writing and practice, you read and things. In an actual creative writing program at Wesleyan, what did you really learn there that you may not have learned elsewhere?
Well, again, mostly my focus was on verse, okay, and I think the main thing I learned was I worked in a lot of, especially in verse, you work in a lot of specific genre and I don't know formats, right? You do sonnets, you do, you know, different rhyming and open couplets and stuff like that. So it kind of like gave you focus, like even though it was really restricted to work in those formats, by the time you did and then stepped out of it, you were so much more prepared to, you know, to express yourself. So, and then, you know, I did pretty well, you know, with the verse. I got a couple of awards down there, so that was always nice. And, you know, and then, like I said, then when I got out, I started trying to write songs.
So did it help to be surrounded by a lot of other creative people, or you just do your own thing, or like occasionally you find a kindred spirit, I guess, but how does that work for you with working with others?
I mean, for the most part on my stuff, I work, you know, you're flying solo, you know, to put things together, but then I get involved in writers groups, you know, so, you know, we put out our stuff and then get feedback and work together like that. So it's good being around those kind of creative people to get that feedback, because that's the hardest thing, right? Is, I mean, I know, you know, like when I'm halfway through a mystery, I pretty much know what's going to happen, right? But what I'm interested in is hearing what people who don't know what's going to happen think is going to happen. And that's, you know, that's hard for me to figure out, you know, what kind of what kind of impressions have I built up? What kind of red herrings are they biting on, and what do they think is going to happen? So, you know, besides the, you know, we get critical feedback, but that's really what I'm looking for, is trying to figure out what people are expecting and then where they think the story is going to go. And because I know where it's going.
But they can't read your mind. No.
Yeah.
They just pick up the clues.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you're doing that and looking for critiques and stuff, or trying to plot the story, I'm just at awe of writers, and they have all different ways of doing it, of just keeping all these moving parts without knocking into each other or canceling each other out. I mean, some people have computer programs where they graph this stuff out. Some people let's see the pants. Where are you in this thing about keeping track of all your characters and little, you know, nuggets of wisdom here and there, or your MacGuffins too?
Well, one thing, I'm a pretty prodigious note taker, right? So when I get ideas, I throw them in. I use Evernote on the computer, so it's somewhat organized, not really, but it's at least in one place, right?
You
So I'm
can
not
find
looking
it
for,
again. Yes.
yeah, I'm not looking for pieces of paper everywhere. But I mean, and that's like a constant churning action, because there's always stuff in there that's kind of percolating up, and oh, I could use that, or I could use that, for different ideas. But pretty much, on In the Black, the 60s book, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of plot lines, there's a lot of characters. In fact, I put a list of characters in the back because there's so many,
Mhm.
right? And I tried to outline, I got about halfway through and I said, this is just crazy. So I need to outline this thing and figure out what's going to happen. So I saw a spreadsheet that Joseph Heller did for Catch 22, because that
Mhm.
was my inspiration for that book. And I thought, well, that's great, I can do that. And so I did, and I laid it all out time-wise, character-wise, what's going to happen and all this stuff. And then, so I said, okay, this is great. Now I need to just, write it out. Well, none of the characters would do what they were supposed to do, right? They didn't follow the outline. So it was
They
like, and
took
I
on a
kept
life of
fighting.
their own. They talk back to you.
Well, it's just like you would try to say, okay, I think you should be doing this. And it just never worked out, right? That, what was on the outline didn't translate to the novel. So I must have fought up with that for a few months, and then I just gave up and started writing. And they all went their own little ways. And it ended up being the right decision as far as I was concerned. They were smarter than I was.
You gave them life, and they did their own thing, and it was a thing of beauty.
Yeah. So after that, I don't outline. I just kind of charge through, and then I write, rewrite, rewrite, and kind of it's like you're always gaming the system, the system, right? Okay, well, what if this happens? Well, that doesn't sound well. What if this happens? So I'm not outlining, but I'm always gaming, what the characters would do, or what might happen to them. And so you just kind of like work through it that way. And then, but like Something for Nothing, I think I was about 3/4 of the way through, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to end the thing. I mean, I knew what was going to happen because the book opens with the ending, which is a plane crash, right? So I know what happens at the end.
That's how you get there.
But I didn't really have an ending for the story. So it was like, oh man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then finally, I just woke up one day and I had it, So, and I was able to, get back to the beginning plane crash at the end. And then I have a little like 100, I think it's 100-word coda that just ends everything. And it kind of puts a exclamation point or period at the end of it. So, but sometimes I have other writers that say, oh no, you got to outline, you got to lay everything out, it's got to be this way. And it's like, well, I kind of work without a net. So
there are all kinds of writers, and I've met who work either way. Yes.
Yeah, and that's good for them, because they can make it work. But like I said, I tried it, and it didn't go so hot for me.
So let's go now a bit more chronologically to your writing. You're doing things with your life, and like you said, never stop writing, always keep writing.
Right.
What was the first thing you wrote that actually turned into a book?
Oh, well, that'd be My Brother's Keeper.
That was your very first one then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have another one that I wrote that I just buried, that it just wasn't very good. So
It will never come to light.
Nah, I don't think so. So this was really the second one, and it's yep. And the whole idea, and I thought that was going to be a series all along. I thought it'd just be neat, because I'm a pilot and I like pilot stories. So I thought it'd be neat to just have this particular pilot, Hawk, go through just different adventures, from that book takes place in 1950 in Hollywood, where he's a movie stunt pilot. then he's just going to go through different adventures. The next adventure was going to be in Alaska, but I wrote something for nothing, so I skipped ahead to the 60s, where he goes to the Belgian Congo in Jungle Land, and becomes
Mercenary type stuff.
Yep. He's a pilot flying for the he's actually flying for the Congo government against the Simba rebels.
Mhm.
And then I've got the next one is I got the first chapter done on that. That's called Racing the Dream, and that's he gets involved in airplane racing, right?
In Cleveland.
Yep, and Cleveland was Cleveland Air Races was the big thing in racing. Now he's getting involved in the 60s when it's just kind of picking back up again. But so he'll end up in Cleveland at the end, down at Burke.
So I guess, yeah, when I see here this, My Brother's Keeper, this edition at least came out in 2014. So that's your first thing that you had published at that point. And this was your own imprint, Electron Alley.
Right.
All
Electron
these
Alley.
are on yours.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I went through the whole, I finished that a long time ago, and I went through the whole, got enough rejection slips to, wallpaper a rec room if I wanted, and did all of that. And then I think the ebook actually came out in 2011, 2012, when Kindle was starting to come out. And I worked through Smashwords, and I actually published for Apple, Barnes and Noble, and Smashwords through them.
And Smashwords usually passes it around to everybody. But for libraries as well. So.
Yeah. And then I get, they have the was it Taylor, and they're involved with some of the
Baker and Taylor 360.
Baker and Taylor.
And the cloud library that used to be 3M, they picked that up from Smashwords, and so does Hoopla. They always tell people, don't send your stuff to them, send it to Smashwords, and they pick it up from there.
Right.
Even Overdrive picks it up from there.
Right.
And you can submit directly to Overdrive as well.
Yeah. For the libraries and for those main retailers, I go through them. I go direct. You have to go direct with Amazon on Kindle, and then I also go direct with Kobo. I thought I'd try to do them direct, and then so that when I got word of the whole ebook thing, and I was a big ebook guy. I actually had a Sony ebook reader.
I remember those. We had one.
Yeah. And then Sony, and then the Nook, and then now the Kindle stuff. And then so I got that started about 2011, 2012, and then I can't remember 2014. I think they had Create Space and I'm the now I can't remember. The one I end up using is
self-publishing platforms. Yes. Or Ingram Spark or
Ingram Spark. Yes, Ingram Spark. So I looked at those, and the kind of like Smashwords, Ingram Sparks gets you into their distribution channel, right? And then they distribute it to everybody there. So they said, if you're going to publish a lot of books, that they're the way to go, to go with that way. So then I figured out how to put together the print version, and then that came out, I guess 2014, you said.
Yeah, and one thing I always tell writers, or they also tell me from experience, what I've learned is that it's good to have very good metadata about your books, because that's stuff that's going to get you found, why people want to buy it, whether they be consumers or other jobbers or libraries or ebook people to pick it up, and then that stuff turns into catalog records and ebooks and turns into summaries and ad copy. And sometimes books don't have a very poor metadata, or not much, so people see a book and they have no idea what it is. It has a story to tell electronically for everybody else.
Yeah, well, and then then after you get the darn thing published, then you got to take off, your production hat, then you have to put on your marketing hat and start to figure all that stuff out. And
Now what?
yeah, and there's, geez, man, just a ton of things that you got to do on that end of it. So it's like, and that's continuous because you got to advertise it, and you got to figure out the keywords that are important and the categories, and it's almost a nightmare.
And
But
it doesn't happen by itself. Somebody's got to
no,
push all
No.
those buttons and make those phone calls and send those texts. It's very
Yeah.
labor intensive. Yes.
Yep. But that's just all part of the game. It'd be nice if a publisher would take care of that. But even if you're a mid-list author, the ones I've talked to that have publishing contracts, they have to do their website, they have to do their email list, they have to do their, some of them have to arrange their own book signings and promotion. So it all falls back on you. So if I got to do it, I might as well do it for,
Do it the way you like it.
Yeah. So that's good.
So tell me a little bit more about, because I guess the thing that's a bit different for you that we normally don't see is the Murder by Munchausen, the science fiction thing about killer robots.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Back a while back when I got started on that, leading up to that, it was like everybody was in my writers groups. They were all writing zombie apocalypse zombie movies. And I thought,
Walking Dead was huge then, I imagine, right?
Yeah, Walking Dead was a huge thing. Everybody's doing short stories, everybody's doing novels, everybody's doing all this Walking Dead stuff. And I thought, okay, well, what's going to be the next thing, right? Once you move past, the zombies, what's going to come next? And I thought that, the combination of artificial intelligence and then advanced robotics, where robots were pretty much real people, standing beside you, that you not like not like the mechanical robots you see on Boston Scientific, but these are humanized, robots.
Kind of like replicants, but which are still biological entities, but these are still machines, I guess.
Yeah, these are machines. And then it's like, okay, so you got these things, and then it's like, well, what if somebody hacked into them and decided to turn them into, a one-off hitman, Well, if you had those, then you would need a police force that could track those things. So that's the idea I had to go, to go the next step. So.
Also very tempting for even people officially opposed to these or such police courses to be co-opted and maybe be behind some of these things, huh? Sneaky.
That could happen.
I mean,
it hasn't happened in my book yet.
No. But I'm reading, and in the 3 laws here, you've kind of taken, I think, Asimov's 3 laws and put them on their head a bit. And because the only things that are not allowed to kill are civilian owned.
Right. Well, because there's that
civilian owned robots.
Well, and that's the bureaucracy taking Asimov's laws and putting it into their words. And it has to be that way because as part of this whole thing, you have
weapons, yes.
cyber military type robots that are allowed to kill and are allowed to go after it. So they have to kind of draw a line there. So
yeah, so complicated ethical reasoning there with that kind of power and that kind of responsibility. Yes. Anyway, so I guess some of the questions people may have for you is, what have you really learned that you'd like to tell people when you want to get started? I know it's right all the time, but if you have any specific things that might apply to other people, we'd love your advice.
In terms of
what to do and do well.
Well, it's you got to write and get stuff put together. I rewrite constantly, but you got to get through the process and have a completed package to work with. So you don't want to, you don't want to just keep rewriting the first 2 or 3 chapters of your book over and over 27 times. You gotta keep moving through. And basically, it doesn't matter whether it's 1,000 or 2,000 words a day that you put together, or 500. You just do it every day and just pile up the words every day, and before you know it, as long as you're moving forward, after, so many months, you have a book, and then you can go back and make all the adjustments that you want, so, and then, so I mean, that's obviously the most important thing you got to write. It's just, and then you got to decide what you want to write. Maybe there are people who, they play the game of trying to solve, what genre should I write? What subject should I write? Let the market tell them what to write, and then bringing you back. And that can work, and you can be very successful and probably put out an awful lot of books, if that's your interest. I kind of take the other way, where it's like, what do I want to write? What interests me more than what interests all the readers. So however that works out, that's the path I've taken. So.
Yes, and then of course, if you're doing this independently, doing all the promotion, marketing, I'm gathering you said you have a proofreader editor that you work with, who goes through all your books to make sure all the loose ends are tied up,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because you can't really do that by yourself.
As many times as I read my own books and I get it done, I send it to B in Kansas City, and it comes back all marked up, and it's like, how could I miss all this stuff?
Because you're too close to it.
Well, that, and the fact that she's on top of all of it, so she gets it for me, and that goes through me, my reading. I have some beta readers. I have writers groups. They go over it. So it's and after all that, and then I go over everything at the end, and it still comes back red inked. So, but it's
Never
good.
be
It's
perfect even after that, huh?
yeah. So, and she's been a great editor. So I found her out of the blue with My Brother's Keeper, and I've used her for every book. So,
Great.
Yeah.
So these books may have been a good calling card or introduction. You must have met several interesting people because they found your books. I just imagine that.
Interesting readers.
You probably met some interesting people because they found your books and wanted to meet you. Is that the case?
There's a few people I met that that have been interesting. Some guys that they've consumed all my books and they're waiting for the next ones, and they're pretty interesting, to talk to. So, but most of the time you're just kind of out here, like I said, flying solo. So, and
once in a while there's a flare of, wow,
yeah,
this is amazing. This changed my life. You will hear that occasionally from somebody, I imagine.
well, I don't know if I've changed anybody's life.
That you know of.
That I know of, but hopefully you gave them some insights on some different things.
Yeah, it's how a lot of people figure out what they share and have in common is, hey, I read this book, you should too. And you're a bridge for that. Sometimes you may not even realize it. So
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we should probably say goodnight. So I wanted to say thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Mudcat. And
great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and like a lot of things, we're going to look forward to seeing you November 6th at Read Write Local 3 in person at the library.
Finally.
So come and meet the man who writes the books and all these people. It's going to be wonderful. And meanwhile, keep on going. We're going to be looking forward to the next books that you have coming out, and we'll be getting them at the library. So have a good evening. Thank you for joining us. This has been Read Write Local Unbound. I'm Jerry Vogel for Avon Lake Public Library.